Hello, everyone. This is the third recording for Early Stoic Philosophy, a class on Stoic logic, physics, and ethics. And today I want to offer a topical introduction to Stoic physics on the question of what is it that the Stoics are saying when they propose that there are two principles, God and matter. And as we think through this, we will encounter one of the most contested claims in Stoic philosophy, namely that, at least according to most sources, they say that God, divinity, is corporeal. And that has been disputed. Some scholars read the texts and say it is simply impossible that that is what they are saying. So we need to find a reading of the sources according to which they are not saying this. It has also been misunderstood insofar as some people describe the Stoics as materialists. And that is clearly a misrepresentation. The Stoics do not say that God is material. They do seem to say that God is corporeal. So I'm going to talk through the outlines of the Stoic theory of two principles in order to get us to a position where we can critically assess these matters. The proposal is that there are the two principles, God and matter. God is also called the active principle. Matter is also called the passive principle. Both are described as everlasting and indestructible and as bodies. Matter is described as entirely unqualified and unable to qualify itself in any kind of way. God, the active principle, fully permeates matter. And the active principle, God, permeates matter, the passive principle, in such a way as to, as it were, create units, to individuate the items that ordinarily we refer to when we say this is a tree or this is a person or this is a grain of sand, but also on a microscopic level to individuate elements. So any kind of item, anything we can call a compound, whether that is a compound of God and matter, which is merely an element, or whether the macroscopic compound, which is a person or a tree or a stone. All of that is constituted by the way in which God pervades matter. That is the basic proposal. Now, to help us think about that, I want us to compare the Stoic view that there are these two principles with the Aristotelian tradition, in which there is a lot of talk about principles. Those of you who read some of Aristotle's works, either the Physics or maybe Metaphysics Alpha, you are familiar with Aristotle presenting his predecessors in such a way as if they all asked, what are the first principles? Or in another formulation that Aristotle uses a lot, what are the first principles and causes? And the assumption here is that it is the answer to this question which is somehow giving us the most fundamental account of reality. And Aristotle's own ambition is to answer this question. What are the first principles and causes? And he speaks of the science we are seeking. The science that we are seeking would be one which tells us what are the first principles and causes. Now, it can seem as if, when the Stoics say there are these two principles, God and matter, it could seem as if they are offering a reply to this Aristotelian question. And I want to propose that that is kind of really not what they are doing. And here are three ways in which we can think about the difference. One is, Aristotle assumes that our most basic question in a way is a why question. You find yourself in the world, and you ask yourself, why are things the way they are? And that question has been gripping and compelling to a lot of other philosophers and scholars. There's something very intuitive about the idea that the most fundamental theory would be a theory of why things are the way they are. And then also the most important, the most elevated kind of knowledge would be knowledge of why things are the way they are. The Stoics, however, do not think so. And we already kind of know why not. They genuinely and literally hold that virtue is knowledge, and also the other way around, that knowledge is virtue. So they literally identify knowledge and virtue. And what that means for them is that the kind of knowledge that we are seeking, the knowledge that we are after, the knowledge that would be kind of the best knowledge for us to have, is a comprehensive system of knowledge consisting of logic, physics, and ethics. So you need all of it. You need this complete system of knowledge. And why? Because only that would enable you to live well and be virtuous. And that is really what we are after. So the second difference is that when Aristotle uses this phrase, first principles and causes, he's kind of running the two notions, principles and causes, very closely together. And the Stoics don't do that. Consider again the two principles, God and matter. Only one of these two principles is a cause. God, the active principle, is a cause. The maker is also called the making principle, topoion in Greek. God is what makes and causes and is active. But the passive principle doesn't do anything and is not a cause. So the two notions of principle and cause are being pulled apart here. Third difference. In Aristotle, and that is a much debated and contested idea, the notions of a principle and a cause and an explanation are somehow run very closely together. And explanation can seem to be a very different kind of thing, because you may think, well, an explanation somehow is a linguistic item or propositional item. And nevertheless, all of that seems to be kind of in the picture in the Aristotelian tradition. But for the Stoics, it is not. The claim is that God and matter are principles. One of them is a cause, namely God. But they are both corporeal and they are entities. They are not somehow linguistic or propositional entities. So I am sketching these really fundamental differences because I want to emphasize something that is surprisingly hard to appreciate. The Stoics genuinely put forward a different approach in philosophy. And I want to invite you to kind of take the time to think your way into that fundamentally different outlook, and only then assess the question of whether they say that God is corporeal and what that could possibly mean.